Hey, everybody, welcome to Shit Talk Reviews. We're a group of knuckleheads that like to get together and talk shit to one another around the general whirlpool of music. And occasionally we get fortunate enough to coerce someone unsuspecting to come and join us. Today is one of those days. We are fortunate to have with us Mr. Blake Ibanez, the guitar player for Grammy-nominated Power Trip and Fugitive, just a killer player from Texas. We are psyched to have you. Welcome, Blake. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
So let's just jump into this. So Power Trip comes back with Seth. And tell me a little bit about how that happened and how that came to be, because it had happened a lot faster than I was expecting. How did that come to be?
Well, it really just happened because we had been doing, we started Fugitive a couple of years ago, and that was kind of during a time when Power Trip was pretty much, not really a thing. I mean, we never really broke up, but obviously with everything that happened, it was just sort of like, I was trying to, we were trying to figure out, what to do, but obviously it was understood that we weren't doing what we were. So it just took a while, and I was just going, Seth was, he's one of my close friends. He lives in my town, and, I knew he was a singer, obviously, but at that point, he hadn't really made a lot of records or anything like that. And this was just kind of a fun way. We started playing together with Fugitive, and it was just like, let's just get in the studio and just see what happens and work together. And it turned out that we worked really well together because we were already good friends. And, he had sort of turned a corner, I would say, as a vocalist, as far as I can tell, with his other band, Scourge. So like I kind of heard something he did with them before we started Fugitive, and I was like, oh, I knew you were, a good singer, but I didn't know you were doing this. So once I heard that, I was like, well, why don't we just try to do something? And I was writing some new music, and I just kind of wanted to do something for fun, and it just, I didn't really know how it was going to turn out. I was just hoping for the best, but we worked well together. So anyways, we started doing that and played a good amount of shows and some bigger shows. We just played a lot, and I kind of saw his progression as a singer, and I think he did too. I mean, his confidence level and just everything. He's been singing in bands as long as we've been a band. He's been singing and fronting bands since the late 2000s, but he's always been like local hardcore bands and stuff. So it was a little bit of a different level of expectation, and just he hasn't really. I don't know if he'd been in a band or worked with someone maybe like me that was so, had such a vision for what I wanted him to do. I think maybe in his other bands, it was a little bit more like they kind of left the ball in his court, which is cool too. But I think he liked me pushing him to like do more and to hone his craft a little bit and to bring out the best in him. So like, I think I was able to do that pretty well. So,
what is an example of pushing a singer for those people who like John has a home studio, so he understands it. But for those who don't know what goes into recording and bringing the best out of somebody on a recording, what are the kind of things that you would push him to do?
Well, like, it was the same thing with Power Trip when we were in the studio. I mean, Riley obviously was a great lyricist and would come up with a lot of his lyrics before we got together, but in terms of delivery and how, when I write and arrange, I always kind of know where I want everything to go. So, and that was the same thing. So with Power Trip, it would be like, I would kind of be like, look, here's where I hear everything going. This is how we arranged it. This is the verse and the chorus. Sometimes he would go another direction on certain parts, and we would kind of meet in the middle. But overall, it was like, hey, this is how we put the song together. Here's the verse, here's the chorus. Don't sing right here. This is the break, whatever. And I just kind of did the same thing with him, and we kind of worked through it together. And I'm not so much of a lyricist, but I can throw a line or a word, or I'm pretty good with phrasing, where I want things to land. But I think with him, it was about like honing his voice. So like me kind of telling him what to do, what not to do in terms of like how to sing and phrasing and all that stuff. Songwriting. Him kind of showing him my way of doing things and I think he learned a lot in that process. But he's a natural, when he's been on stage a long time. So that was a big part of it. And then, once we had done all these Fugitive stuff and we had done these last couple of recordings, it's like, he's like, his voice is killing it. And like, he's really, feels good on stage. And it came to, I think I kind of asked him, before we even started Fugitive, if you wanted to, mess around and maybe try out or, throw something down on one of these. We had been working on a power trip record that we recorded all the music to. And I think at the time it was like during COVID, and he was sort of like, it was a little soon after everything had happened. I mean, it was probably a year after everything went down, but it was still a little soon, a little fresh. And, he didn't have the, I don't know if he really had the confidence level yet to feel like he could approach that the right way. I don't blame him, because it was a little soon, and, it was a weird time. But, at this point, it's just, it had been so long, and I think we've been playing together, and, I think Power Trip fans knew who he was. When it comes to like what we're doing, we don't really have, with in terms of Power Trip, like I had really no desire to reform the band if we couldn't do it the way we wanted to do it. With people that we want to work with, like we come from a scene, so it's like, we're not going to just like hold YouTube auditions for a guy that sounds like Riley and then like, bring him in. It's like, it's going to be someone that's a friend of ours, that's from our world, that like gets our, that's from our scene. And like, I just think the way it worked out, like, it had been long enough with, since Power Trip had played, it was less, it's not about, filling any shoes. I think people need to understand that, I mean, we're not even really a full-time band, we're just playing some shows. So it's really just about playing the songs again and kind of honoring what we did and celebrating the songs and doing it, a different way. I think we realized that getting someone that sounds just like him would have been really weird and really, I think, not the right thing to do, because, it's just, that's not right. And I think Seth is in the same family tree vocally, but he's got his own sound and his own delivery. And I think he sings the songs a little bit differently in a way that I think is more him. He's his own person. And so we wanted that. So, people, some people, you can't really win, because some people want it to sound exactly the same. It's like, well, if we did that, then the same group of people would be criticizing us for getting a lesser version, or, it's never going to be, he's a different person. It's not going to sound the same, but I really like what he brings to the songs. And I think this is the best case scenario for us to play again. And I don't really know what the future holds exactly. We're still very much invested in Fugitive, and we're actually kind of working on we have like 10 songs for the album, and we're like finishing vocals. So
Blake, I was just going to ask you where you're going with Fugitive now, because I would assume that Fugitive, like you just said, eventually a full album will come out. But was Fugitive, and I'm new to Powerhouse, like we discussed earlier. But
Power Trip, you bonehead.
Power Trip.
That's why it's called shit talk reviews.
I apologize, Power Trip. But was this more of an outlet for you? Perhaps maybe there's things you couldn't do in Power Trip that you brought to Fugitive, and I guess where does that go now with Power Trip? How do you balance both now?
Yeah, I mean, Power Trip is still kind of a reunion band, so I think the only objective we have right now is to play all the songs for people that either never have to see us or want to see us again. And it's been a long time, so we don't, there's a lot of music that I spent a lot of time writing, and a lot of songs that one day we may take a crack at. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, like, part of me is like, I started this new band, and it's sort of it's my thing, and it's like, I can write a new story, and also like I've somehow been able to find a pretty definite line between the two bands in terms of like, there's riffs that could go either way, but like, it's a different tuning. It's like, I'm playing a lot, the fast songs are not quite as fast, but they're a little more rocking and ripping. And then the slower stuff's slower, and there's double bass, there's more groove. So like, there's definitely a big contrast between the bands. Not to say that it doesn't sound like stuff I write, but it's, I feel really confident in the difference of the bands sonically. So, the other thing is like, I started the band, and the guys in that band were, they kind of pulled me out of the mud, and, you
owe it to them, right? You feel like you owe it
them to not, I'm not trying to bail on it. And I also love the music that I'm writing for this band. I believe in what we're doing. I think that we can establish this band, in a similar way. Obviously Power Trip's, been around much longer, multiple albums, we're a much bigger band, but it's like, I think, I don't want people to think that like, okay, we got Power Trip back on stage, so I'm just going to ditch this other thing. And, because I respect what we did in Power Trip, and I don't know if it's time to write music under that name again. I think we can perform the songs and celebrate them, and, with fans all over the place and have a good time. And, maybe down the line, there is music that may or may not, we might decide to do something with it. Maybe not. I just don't think now is the time. It may never be the time, but I think, the first order of business is finishing this Fugitive record, because I'm really excited about what we have. It's kind of a continuation of the last thing we did, the last couple songs. But there's
Blast Furnace is just a head crusher. You put it out, and I remember driving around with my kids, and my kids are in the back seat, just going like this, and then I go down and see these two assholes at our real job and drive way too fast when you put that out. Standoff too. Just holy shit, dude. Awesome.
It came to that stuff came together pretty quickly. And I was like, I for whatever reason, there's a very, even though there's things that are similar between Power Trip and Fugitive, I feel like I can totally write different things with Fugitive. There's so many things, especially on this new album that we're doing, that I wouldn't do in Power Trip. There's not as much crossover as it seems. I mean, there's definitely stuff. There's a few riffs here and there that could go either way, but I just really like what I'm doing right now. So I really want, in the same way that Max Cavalera's got Cavalera and Soulfly, Tom G. Warrior's got Triptychon, and Triumph of Death, Frost, and all that. I want to have different avenues to make music, and I think when people hear the record and even the stuff we've done already, they can tell, okay, I see how this is different and how these two bands can be different. But for now, Power Trip is just, we're just playing all the old songs and, trying to take advantage of that and have a good time doing that before we really assess, anything moving forward. So, I mean, I guess in a way you could say we're back, but we're not really back like we were. We're playing, and then we'll see what happens. So.
I was going to say, Blake, it's funny you talked about Max Cavalera, because when I put this on for the first time, I was absolutely floored. I was telling the guys, Maniac and the Javelin, the songs are just incredible. But the riff on the Javelin, just that basic riff, sometimes it just takes a simple riff to just have a song so powerful, and it reminded me of that. And you do remind me a lot of Max Cavalera, for sure, with the riffs, just phenomenal stuff. I just wanted to mention that before we moved on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, he's a big influence, and I'm lucky to kind of been able to meet him and hang out with him a few times. And I think there's some mutual respect there, which is awesome. It's an honor, because he's always been a big influence on me. But that's the thing. He's like that. He's a workhorse. He has all these different bands, and he's always writing. And I think he's able to have different stylistic angles to take with different bands, and I think people love it because he's honest, and he's really doing what he's doing what he's good at, and he does have different sides to him. Soulfly is a different side than all the Sepultura Cavalera stuff, and all these other bands he does, Nail Bomb and everything. I mean, it's pretty cool. He has a body of work, and I'm kind of trying to do that. I do want more to my name than just Power Trip. I mean, I'm proud of it, but I'm always have a chip on my shoulder to kind of do things my own way, in a different way, and play with different people and stuff. So
yeah,
so far it's been really fun.
You and in the Cavalera camp share a resource in Arthur Rizek. How'd you get connected with him?
Arthur was he was kind of like a random guy that was sort of found himself in the hardcore scene in Pennsylvania in the 2000s. I think he was like a metalhead for his whole life, and obviously still is, but I think he sort of stumbled into some hardcore bands, and he ended up playing with some, really good hardcore bands and those guys, and kind of became the metal guitar player in the hardcore band, which has always been a cool thing. And because of that, we had some mutual friends, and he was the cool, we were just like, who is this guy? Who's this metalhead dude that ended up here? And we just thought he was so cool. And we just ended up kind of becoming friends through those people. And I think he was, he had been recording a little bit and was starting to kind of build a career in recording. And I think those records, when we started working with him, we just met him and just kind of became friends. And I feel like, the records we made sort of set him on a really good path to what he's doing now. And he's obviously accomplished so much since then, but he's, just a really cool guy. He's really fun to be around, and he's, got really good energy, and he's also just a music fan. He likes, he's so much music. And I think that's really important, especially if you're a metalhead, to have different dimensions to what your influences are and what you can kind of reach into to be a producer. And, obviously everyone likes working with him because he's worked with tons of bands and old bands and new bands. He's a good hang.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about him just earlier this evening, and everything that guy gets his fingers into is good.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he does. And, also he's a fun guy. And I think a lot of the part about being in the studio, especially when it comes to being a producer, is making people feel comfortable and have fun. If the vibe is off at all in the studio, like your engineer's a dick or the producer's an asshole, like that can just ruin the whole session, and also just makes people not want to go back. People just, I think, obviously he's great at what he does, but I think a lot of people just go, oh, we get to fucking hang out with him for a like and fuck around and that's a huge draw, so he's just like, personality's a big part of his why people love working with him. And on top of that, obviously he's just he gets good at what he does. So
what's your comfort level when you're in the producer role? Like you were talking about working with Seth and pushing him to bring out the best performance. What's your comfort level there? I mean, obviously you've got a vision of what you want to have as an end result, but how easy is it for you to help push people and to, try and accomplish that and draw stuff out of folks? Is it easy for you, or is it a task?
Well, I think, if you get along really well with someone, it's not that hard. So Seth and me have a really good dynamic where he kind of knows, he knows he plays ball with my vision and what I think. And I think he trusts me, and, so it makes it easy. And even when I'm very direct with him, I say, hey, don't do that. And that doesn't, he doesn't take it. He doesn't take offense to it. He just knows I'm trying to be very straight up and just keep things moving. So, but I like it. I mean, I like the idea of producing, I mean, I could maybe see myself doing something like that in the future. The only problem is I have to really like it. So, and I'm pretty picky about what I like. So, but I do like doing it. I'm a music fan, I'm really into songwriting and, nerdy stuff about that. And I like production. I like, when we're doing vocals and, phrasing and syllables, and I'm into all that stuff. So I could definitely envision myself doing more of it in the future. I just have to really like the project, and, it's a little weird to think about doing with someone that I don't know that well. But I think if you have a good relationship with the person and they understand you and they don't get, weird about it, then I think it would be fun to do.
So have you ever written a riff and you wrote it and you go, oh shit, that's the one? Like you were just giddy about it.
Yeah. It happens sometimes. It's nice when it happens like that, because then you're just you don't think twice about it, Yeah. Gotten better about that. I mean, I think when I first started writing a lot on my own, putting the whole songs together on my own, it was a little harder because you have to kind of learn how to test them the right way, because recording on a computer or whatever, sometimes things can sound better than they really are, or worse than they really are. As opposed to when you're in the room with a drummer and it just feels right, generally you don't second guess it at all. It's we're looking at each other, it feels good, he likes it, I like it. You don't really think twice about it. But when you're at home or when you're doing it yourself, every little minor note is it can be second guessed. So yeah, there's been a few of them. There's been a bunch of them.
Well, you roll out of bed and you seem to bat 1,000 anyways. I mean, my God, man.
I know. Maybe you guys might think that, but no.
I think that.
Usually, I just run them through the gauntlet. So there's some that don't make the cut, but the ones generally, if I feel good about it, if it just feels good, to me it's the right thing. Because for me, it's as long as I'm happy with it, then I'm happy. If I write it and I really like it and other people don't, then that I can live with that, because I know that to me it's right. But if I felt not right about it and then people didn't like it, it would be worse. So
do you have just a folder of back burner riffs sitting on a hard drive somewhere?
Yeah, this, usually it kind of starts with a voice memo to a drum loop. And then, a lot of times what I do is I'll basically just jam on a drum loop for 10 minutes or 15 minutes to a beat. And I'll just kind of go through and I could have a 10-minute loop and I have to listen back to it. And there could be literally a split second where I do this one thing. I didn't even realize I was doing it when I was jamming. I was just vibing, and that's it. And I think that's the key, is being able to find those moments and take advantage of them and just be, focus and find all that shit. So, for me, that's kind of how I do it. And I think sometimes they just kind of fall out of thin air. Like, I don't know, like the blast furnace riff, the chorus, like I had it in like an old session from something else. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And it's like one of those riffs where I don't even know, I wasn't thinking it through about how I'm picking it or anything. It's just something I did naturally. So like when I even try to show it to people, I have to go, well, what am I doing? But some of these little natural things I do with the way I play, I think I just naturally do them. I don't know. So like with that riff, I'm kind of like muting and laying off the low E string and then kind of playing between it. And I don't like, that's just something I've always done. And sometimes, yeah, that'll happen and I'll just kind of get the tail of the riff and it's there. And I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted. So
you talked about the sonic differences between Fugitive and Power Trip. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, everything Power Trip related is E standard and Fugitive is D standard. Is that right?
Yeah, all the Power Trip stuff except for like one EP is in standard. I think the first EP is in E flat, and then everything else is in standard. And then Fugitive's just a step down.
Tell me how that started. Why Fugitive in D?
Yeah, I mean, it does have a big difference. I think the weird thing for me is like a lot of the things that I do, my moves, I guess, they translate really well a full step. But like for some reason, when I went down a half step, some of the things I do, they don't translate that well. Like you can play all the Power Trip stuff in D and it sounds cool. I don't know if Fugitive to Power Trip would work the same way. Cause like sometimes just that step down just makes certain chord progressions sound better. But like for some reason, the half step just like it doesn't work so well. So, and obviously, I mean, that's not as much of a departure, like a full step. It's like, okay, this sounds like a different thing. So yeah. I think I started, I was gonna like fill in for a band on tour that shall not be named, but I was learning their songs and, so I had my guitar tuned down and I think I just started writing that way. Cause I was like, this is fun. And I was, because once I started playing in that tuning, I was, it was like kind of digging into some of the influences that I like that are a little lower tuned, like Repulsion and obviously Celtic Frost. I mean, they're not necessarily lower tuned all the time, but just that, dirtier, nastier thing. Little bit of like black metal stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a huge black metal guy, but I really like the beginning, the kind of the primitive stuff where it's sort of just thrash or speed metal, but with, a little grimier. So Bathory and so there's stuff like that too, but I just thought it was fun because it was like I think writing all the material for the Power Trip record that never happened was sort of it took me a while and there's a lot of good stuff, but it was at the end of it writing all those songs I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready for a new frontier. I feel like I kind of maxed out on what we were doing in that tuning. At least at the end of that, I mean, could be different now if I went back to it, but I just felt like I need to open up some new doors, and I love groove. I like having a little more space for riffs, I like stuff like that. So I think opening up the new, it was like a new road to kind of, and that felt good. It was like, oh wow, I've never been able to play that chord and have it sound good, so it was fun and it still is, it's
Are you doing anything differently, in terms of gear for Fugitive, or was it pretty much you just carry over the same pedal rig, amps, the whole nine?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I play different guitars, and for Fugitive in the studio, I'm always playing a Les Paul.
Okay.
I really love my Les Paul that I play, and I play it every day. So I have a standard. That's kind of my at-home guitar. Live, obviously, I play my Jacksons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really comfortable on those. And they have the Floyd Rose, so I got to have that. But it's pretty much exactly the same. I mean, it's simple. It's just a tube screamer and an 800. But
yeah, but it sounds huge, man.
I mean, that's like a tried and true combo. But the thing about it is it can go any way you want it to. I mean, the way that you play and your pickups and your strings, all that dictates how the 800 is going to respond and what kind of 800 it is and what year. Yeah. There are variables, but that is one thing I always say I love about that amp is that it just everyone sounds different. It's like it responds to all the little intricacies of how you play, you know, so how you pick, what kind of pick you use, you know, how much you're digging in, you know, all that stuff dictates how that amp sounds. So
yeah, that's a year now, and yours is an 86. Is that right?
Yeah.
I know that the Marshall guys out there, they peg the years, man.
Yeah, they're literally every single one is, I feel like it's different. I'm sure if I got another one of the same one I have, it would sound a little different, but yeah, it's great. I mean, I've played a lot of them, and it's my favorite one. There's just something about it, you know, it's got like this balls thing.
It's got the vibe.
It's got the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you indulging me. I will bore these guys to fucking tears talking
lots
about
and lots of gear porn. Listen, I have to ask, Crossbreaker, you know, when you wrote that riff, what was going through your head on that one?
Well, it's funny you say that because actually that's one of the ones I didn't write. But
really?
I love giving credit to the person who did. Yeah. Oh. So you know, me and Ulsh, you know, with all the power stuff, we sit in the room and we hash it out. And it generally, like, I'll generally bring in, you know, back in those days, I would bring in a few riffs, you know, okay, I think this is the verse, this is the bridge or whatever. Like, I have riffs in an order, I guess, but we would always sort of play them, and, you know, he would do something that I'd respond to or whatever. And, you know, we would kind of roll into the bridge, whatever that is. But that song, you know, I brought in the verse and, yeah, pretty much just like, you know, sort of the intro verse and the layout of the song, even the end part. But I was like, I don't have a chorus riff. It was like, it worked out really well because he was like, what about this?
Oh.
That guy can write some fucking riffs, you know? Like, when I ask him, because I'm always like, hey, if you got anything, I'm down to check it out. Like, I'm always open to it. I just want it to fit what we're doing, you know? So sometimes he'd either just be like, nah, like, or he would maybe show me something that was cool but didn't quite sound like what we were doing on this record or whatever. And because he writes a lot of stuff in lower tunings, and, you know, he does punk stuff, but he also, you know, Mammoth Grinder's death metal band. He's really good at writing riffs. I'm always like, come on, dude, like, I know you got something. But with that one, yeah, he just had that riff, and I was like, yo, that's badass. Like, it's
pretty gnarly, yeah.
I wouldn't have done that, you know. I think I may have had one little maybe adjustment to one of the parts of the riff at the end of it, but he, you know, that riff is his, so that's like one of two riffs or so that he's contributed, but it was awesome, and it just kind of fit like perfectly in that song. I was just like, it's nice when it works out that way.
Yeah, that's cool.
It worked out yeah, that's his riff.
So let's talk about the future. Is there anything you can tell us about the new Fugitive record that you're proud of, that's people might be surprised with? You know, anything you can indulge us with within the realm of reason?
Well, we did sign to a label, and they're gonna, you know, it's gonna be good. Finally have, you know, in my whole career, I feel like I've never had a real label with real resources. So we have that now. That'll be announced whenever we put the songs out or whatever. But great label, got a great, you know, A&R and, you know, people behind it. We're gonna record with a really cool dude that's done a lot of awesome shit, so I'm excited for that. And yeah, I mean, we don't have all the vocals done. We're still working on it, but I have, you know, the songs that I've written, I'm like, I really like them. It's kind of like it dives into different things, but I think it all sounds like the same band. So it's you know, I think people that like what I do and like power trip and stuff are gonna really like it. I mean, there's some different stuff on there too. Like there's a couple songs where I'm pretty excited to work on the vocals because they're definitely a little different. And I don't know if ambitious is the right word. I guess you could say they're a little ambitious, but I'm excited to see what happens. I really like the music though, and I like, you know, it feels like a little bit of a different thing, but also something that will fit really well into all the other stuff I've done. And I'm just excited for people to hear it. You know, I've been spending a lot of time on it and listening to it a lot on my demos, and it's fun because, like I said, it's sort of, there's this avenue that I didn't really go down in Power Trip, you know, where it's like our songs just kept getting faster. So I couldn't really do the slower, faster songs. Not slow, you know what I mean? Like more like early Metallica, or more, you know, where you can really hear the chicka chickas in there. That's, you know, because Power Trip was going like, we were heading towards brutal thrash, like, you know, Demolition Hammer territory, which is cool too. But, you know, I kind of like, I love like Bonded by Blood and like speed metal.
Yeah.
You know, like when it's first turning into thrash, like, Show No Mercy Slayer. Like that's exactly
Yes.
like I want that, but I want to throw in the later brutal stuff that they didn't know about yet. You know, like we have the advantage of getting to take advantage of all the shit that came later and integrating it into the early stuff. You know, so that's like I'm mixing together all the stuff I love, like from the Celtic Frost, but with Bonded by Blood and with Battery, shit like that. Like just kind of finding the through line, all that stuff that happened later, and you know. So I think it's cool getting to do that and you know, have a little more space for things to happen. It's not just a million miles an hour. You know what I mean?
What are you listening to right now that might surprise people the most? Something that, you know, maybe outside of the general metal arena, because you've got a pretty varied global playlist, don't you?
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you talk to if they'd be surprised or not. I mean, I'm a big, you know, I grew up listening to the Beatles and all that stuff. That's still some of my favorite music. So I'm a big nerd when it comes to rock and 60s, 70s, you know, 90s. I have like singles all over my wall of like, you know, AC/DC, Kiss, Queen, Cars. Listening to right now, I mean, I've been listening to the new Red Cross album. Do you guys know about Red Cross?
Yeah.
Yep.
They just put out a new record, and I love them. Been listening to, I mean, Rat.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, never
That's
go wrong
awesome.
with Rat.
The Seller. Yeah, I love that record. You know, all sorts of stuff. Have you heard of Judy Sill?
Not familiar.
There's a documentary just came out about her, and she was a singer-songwriter woman in the 70s, and she made these like legendary records. But you know, it's the same classic story of like, you know, had problems and turmoil, and it never really worked out. But everybody in every cool band like worships her. So I've been listening to some of her stuff. What else? Yeah, stuff like that. You know, I'm actually coming more and more back to metal these days. I had a period where I wouldn't say I was listening to it, but it was like I try not to get too close to it sometimes because I don't want it to, you know, take over what I'm doing.
Sure.
You know? And obviously, like I've heard the records so many times, and I play shows all the time. So there was definitely a period where it was like not listening to as much metal, but I've come back around where I can sort of enjoy everything equally, and I don't have to feel like I'm, you know, I don't know, something's taking precedence over the other. I can just enjoy everything. So.
You're not cheating on yourself.
Yeah. Like, you know, for a while, I was like, I'm always trying to get ideas for songs, you know, and it's like, obviously the classic metal records have great songwriting, but it was like, I was always trying to come up with new ideas for songwriting. And like, I get a lot of my arrangement and songwriting inspiration from like, you know, I'm a big like power pop fan and rock music fan. So it's like, I'm always trying to figure out how to write like a really concise banger, you know, like something without any fat and that maybe like makes you go, whoa, at one point in the song, you know, because like the riff comes back in a cool way. And that always happens in like a lot of rock songs, you know, like Thin Lizzy and stuff. Like the arrangement where they'll bring the chorus back at the end in a really exciting way, you know, or even like Kiss.
AC/DC, right? They made a living doing that.
Yeah, like AC/DC is a perfect example. Like, and like you were saying earlier about the simplicity of the riff. Like that's what I do. You know, like I always just write like 3 or 4 riffs for a song and just have that and arrange them in a way that's catchy and that people can just like have something to chew on. So,
isn't it amazing though that it could be the simplest riff that strikes a nerve that people gravitate to, and who knows, you know, you might be a riff away, right?
It always is. And so I'm way into that. You know, I want like AC/DC is one of my favorite bands because they're really good at like finding a riff and a groove. I mean, they have some songs with one fucking riff, you know, like, and that's so inspiring, you know, like another band that's really good at that I always bring up is Alice in Chains, because they'll have like, it's amazing. They have like a song with 2 riffs and you're just like, that doesn't feel like it's 2 riffs, but it is, you know. So I love bands that are, you know, economical when it comes to songwriting, and they less is more, you know. I think that's the key, and I think it's just about how you present it and how you you know, how you arrange the song to make it really memorable. And I'm way into that.
Well, you definitely captured that in the Javelin, because that was an phenomenal song, and just a simple, you know, it wasn't anything crazy, but man, did it just hit me to the core. At least great song, Blake, just phenomenal.
I mean, it's funny because I know a lot of people like that song, and I'm like, damn, we should have just made it into like a real song because it doesn't have really any vocals. So I'm like, is it really a song? I mean, I guess it it's kind of like our Redneck Stomp, you know, Obituary has Redneck Stomp. Like that's like people love that song, but it doesn't have any vocals really. So it's like sometimes I'm like, damn, we should have made that into a actual song with lyrics because it probably would have been even better. But I think when I came up with the riffs, I was just sort of like, I don't really hear vocals, and I really like how this is just an intro, and I just I didn't know where else to go with it, and so it
was perfect.
It is, but I'm like, damn, I kind of wish it had vocals because then it would have been like a real song, you know. But you know what? You can do it however you want, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we are huge fans and appreciate your time, and congratulations on having, you know, many avenues now to scratch your musical itches, you know. And I'm thrilled that Power Trip's back. I'm thrilled with Fugitive. I love everything you've done so far. I know the guys do too, and you made a fan out of David J. So
yes, you did. I am a Fugitive fan.
You know, so
I really appreciate that. It's you know, I every day I'm always just like really thankful that people like what I do and that I get to do this because it's, you know, I just feel very lucky that I've kind of been in this position to be able to play music and that people care about what I do and like what I do. It's like always it's always an honor to hear that. So I really appreciate.
You're quite the talent, Blake. Believe me, you're a phenomenal musician.
Before we let you go, can you give us just a little bit of insight about what kind of epic shit show the House of Strombo was? That footage is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel that crazy when we were doing it because we sort of like I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened. I mean, we obviously, you know how they do it there. They just have people in this house, and then you come in and play. And I don't really know how they choose them or how it works. I don't even remember if it was like, hey, we're playing at this house, you guys should come. I don't really remember how that worked, or if they announced it and then people decided to come or what. I mean, I feel like people were there to see us, but I just don't really remember how that got planned. But it was weird because it was fun, but it is weird when you play aggressive music or music like that, and you know, anytime
there's a chandelier above your head.
Yeah, like anytime you go into something knowing you're being recorded, it's hard to get that same energy, you know. Like, I think we played at Third Man Records on that tour, or one of those tours, and
awesome.
They wanted to record us playing like a couple songs or whatever, and do like a live EP or something. And I want to say it was like the second show of tour, and it's really hard to get in that mode when you know you're being recorded. You know, the live record that we ended up making was really just from our tour. Our sound guy was just recording sets every night, like he would just record the soundboard. So it was a show where it was like we're like there's tons of energy and we're feeding off the crowd and we're not thinking about anything. That's why it turned out like, you know, like going back to the Third Man Records thing. It's like the whole time we knew, like, oh fuck, we got to play well, and you know, this and that. Like, you can't get too into it because you might fuck up, and like it. So there was no vibe, there was no like energy in that room. It's a good room for like a rock, like an indie band, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So with the Strombo thing, I think we were kind of like a little. It was the same thing. We were sort of like, you know, we're being recorded. We got to make sure, but it turned out cool, and you know, obviously, like Riley's sense of humor was great for that moment because he always got a kick out of shit like that. Like, you know, oh, we're in a house. This is hilarious. Like, let's fuck this place up type thing.
Yeah.
He was stoked to kind of joke about that situation. So it was cool. And I know on YouTube love shit like that, you know?
Oh, well, I love it. It's some of my favorite live footage, and the album, not to keep you here too long, but the live album is astonishingly good. Presumably for a lot of the reasons that you just said. You know, the capture is so great. The mix is fantastic. The performance is solid across the board. It's just such a high energy fucking record, man. And it's a killer.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, I was kind of surprised that we were able to find one because you never know. I mean, you play live. It's like every night there can be some, you know, but our sound guy at the time, he did a really good job working on it, and he found there were a couple sets I think we listened to, and that one was the clear standout, and he did a good job working on it and mixing it and everything. And no, it turned out great. And I was really glad we were able to do that because I think that was a really good snapshot of that era because we've been on, I think that was like we've been touring all year, and that was kind of in the middle of the tour, so we were very seasoned, and we had the chemistry was flowing. And I thought at that point, especially with all the touring and playing, and Riley, I thought was really like in his element at that point. You can really hear it in the set, like he's just really comfortable and carrying really well. And I'm glad that era of the band got captured because, little did we know that a couple years later again. So I'm really glad that that's there forever. And, like I said, I mean, I'm really proud of everything we did. And, when it comes to playing with Power Trip again, we're really just trying to kind of have closure and enjoy those moments again because we didn't, the rug got pulled out really quickly, and it's a little cathartic for us. There's really there's no part of us that's like, oh, we're moving on and this is like, forgetting about the past. No, we're trying to enjoy and relive those moments again. And there's no part of me that wants to forget about everything we did. I'm very proud of all that. And Riley was such a great singer, and we made some great music together. So I just want to celebrate that. I think I want everybody to know that that's what we're doing right now. I mean, it's really not about, it's not about the future right now. It's about celebrating the past and just trying to honor it and do it justice the best we can with our circumstances now. And I think we're doing that. So
that's awesome.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
For what it is.
Well, thank you for doing that. And the library just needs to be played live. I mean, there's so many. It's so great, and so many fans appreciate it. And I've watched the videos online, and people are eating it up. And I'm happy for you, man. We're all happy for you, and thank you for writing the soundtrack to our lives. We've really we're very lucky.
Thank you. That's really cool here. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Thanks so much for joining us, man. Continued success with Fugitive and all the projects, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that you bring one of them through Florida, preferably the southern half.
Yeah, right.
If we need to fly, we will.
Yeah, we'll be out there at some point in the next year. I know that, so
nice.
We'll be over there.
All right. Nice. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you live.
Thank you.
Ears are on us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Sir.
Appreciate it.
Good night.